Good evening and welcome to the NUSU Debates 2020 to 2021. We are deciding the next year's president of the Student Union, and I've got here with me all the candidates: Abby Hutchinson, Dorothy Chowa, who's the current president, Husnain Shahid, Callum Sawyers and Christopher Winter. How it's going to work is, sorry, I think you can hear a train outside my room. How it's going to work is that we'll have all the opening statements from the candidates first, where they tell us a little bit about their manifesto and their vision for the next year. And then we'll have some general questions to all of the candidates, and then specific ones targeting the manifesto. And then after that, we will have the questions from the floor and their closing statements. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to your opening statements. You'll have 45 seconds to give each opening statement. Abby, would you like to start?
Yeah, sure. Okay, ready?
Ready.
Perfect. So my name's Abby. I'm currently a global public health student doing my master's. And being president is something that I actually considered when I was an undergraduate. So I graduated back in 2018. And I considered running for president back then because I felt as though the university didn't do enough for students during a lecturer strike. However, I didn't feel ready for the role then. I think that's because I feel as though as a sabbatical officer, you have such responsibility. And so I didn't run. And now I feel as though, having had a couple more years to grow as a person, that I really would be the right person for the job, especially as that passion has now grown even stronger to represent you all, given the circumstances of COVID.
Abby? Yeah. Sorry, I'm going to have to stop you. Husnain, would you like to give us your opening statement, please?
Hey everyone, my name is Husnain Shahid and I'm running to be your next NUSU president. Having already been nominated as Change Maker of the Year makes me a best candidate for this position. I have been working within NUSU as International Students Officer, and I initiated the campaign of international students free compensation. And next year, I would be asking the university and lobbying for your interest. So vote wisely. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Christopher? Chris, would you like to give your opening statement?
Hello, can you hear me? Hi.
Yes.
Hello there, everyone. My name is Christopher Winter and I'm a third year electrical electronic engineering student. And I think that the union isn't working. I think there are lots of structural problems with the union and with the university. And I think that it will take someone with a lot of imagination, strength and determination to fix it. And I think I am that person. So I hope that come March, you'll vote for me and win with Winter. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Tom? When you're ready.
Hi everyone, I'm Tom and I want to be your president. I want to focus on the students and make sure that everyone who goes to Newcastle University is supported wholeheartedly by the SU. I mean, this past year we've seen it's highlighted major flaws in the way that students are supported. I want to make sure that mistakes from this year are not repeated and we learn from them. Mental and physical well-being of students are at the forefront of my ideas, and I want to make sure the uni experience is still a net benefit to everyone who comes here. This year has shown how a reactive system has failed students, and with me as your president, you can be sure that I will be proactive. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Callum, your opening statement.
Yeah. Hi, I've only been at the university for 2 years, and honestly, I'm just blown away at how little help we've been given from the university. We've been brushed away, ignored on stuff like safety nets, rent strikes, on money for the cyber attack, which I don't even think has been mentioned in months. It's honestly disgraceful. I want to represent students. I want to work on students' behalf, and that's just the university. The SU's failed us as well. I don't feel like there's any, we're not being represented by the people who are elected. The SU's broken. It's very unaccountable, and it's also failed on cases of sexual violence constantly, and that needs to change.
I'm going to head on to some general questions now. So this is a general question that all of you are welcome to answer. Just jump in whenever you're ready. How do you expect to improve communications between the union and students both ways?
Can I go first, please? So one of my manifesto point is to improve communication between students' union and the students. And that's why I will be hosting live communication sessions, like live question answer sessions every week with the students and updating the students on what's been happening within the students' union. And simultaneously, I would be taking the students' feedback and acting upon it real time and then giving them feedback like, that's what you said. You see, like, say it, sorted. And that's what I'll be doing. I'll be just sorting out with the real-time feedback from students. And I feel like that's one way this year we have been compromised with communication. And that's why, like, being an international student, a lot of international students have been disrupted by a lack of communication from the university and the students' union. And that's why they have to face extra charges with traveling and airfare and accommodations. I mean,
thank you. That's 45 seconds.
I would like to really enhance the NUSU student impact survey that is held at the end of each year. I think this would be a really, really good opportunity to find out exactly what has gone wrong this year and beyond. If we can make sure that that's really stratified and find out what the individual student from different socioeconomic backgrounds and different ethnicities, how their experience has been this year, I feel like that would be a really, really great resource to then use as for evidence-based policy and to get accountability from the university. So that would be my starting point for that. And I agree with you saying, like, I know that this year there have also been drop-ins and Q&As and things like that, but just increasing those and perhaps making them sort of once every 2 weeks and really making a specific timetable slot for students to raise questions.
If I may. So at the moment, Student Council has very little scope for actually allowing questions. We do have a question slot for officers and for members of the elected representatives of the students on council, but you actually have to be in council to ask those questions. You have to be there to ask live. Now, two of my manifesto policies are to introduce easier, more flexible ways of communicating thoughts and ideas with the officerial team and getting the response you want through questions to officers and a open suggestions box on the NUSU website. And I think that the NUSU should be promoting that through its own social media. I also think that social media from the union could be a lot more engaging and a lot less about adverts for accommodation. Thank you.
Chris, I'm going to have to come back to you on that one. How is the suggestion box that you're proposing any different to the suggestion box that's already on the NUSU website under the Your Voice bar that's already promoted on their social media multiple times?
Well, I don't think they're doing good enough. I mean, I know it exists because I use the union quite a lot, but I do feel as though a lot of people don't know it exists, and I think that we should be doing more to promote it. I think that, you know, a lot of the time the union won't promote these things, and they don't. And also, again, it would be different as well, because what I'm saying is you should have a slot in that suggestions box where you can ask officers questions at the union. So currently during student council, there is a questions for officers section, and I feel as though if you input a question on there, you should be able to ask officers questions directly without having to actually go to council. I think that would make it a lot easier for people to ask questions and for officers to be a lot more accountable.
Can I go? Basically, I agree with what Hussein said about constant video or updates to people. If I was elected every 2 weeks, I'd be more than happy to sit down, record a video, say how my manifesto's going, how am I trying to achieve it, and any roadblocks that are in the way. I also agree with Chris about his suggestion there. But what I will say is that I don't see any point in doing that if council isn't one person, one vote, because it's still this, like, you can complain to elected officers all you want, but unless every student's allowed to vote, then there's no real point. You can't change things.
Yeah, finally, I'd like to ramp up the online presence of the SU, because we've had, like last week, the Leeds students were stuck for 24 to 48 hours without power and electricity. And I only found that from like a Newcastle students like kind of page, Instagram page, but there's nothing on it from the SU. And they need to be really proactive in this rather than reactive, because you're going to get stuck with students in there. It's about 1K in Leeds, where they're just trapped, and you're going to have some parents aren't going to get their kids back and stuff like that. And I really think that the SU needs to be really ramping up this online schemes that they've got, because it's a disgrace.
How do you propose to do that?
I want to increase the Instagram page, because it's pretty much quite reactive. There's only I'd say a post probably once maybe a week, and then a story about once a week. If you do that pretty much every day, I think you need a social media officer that's on it.
Thank you. Hussein, your manifesto mentions that you'd like to make the university more sustainable. What do you mean by this, and how do you propose to do it?
Well, yes, at the moment, Newcastle University is 23rd in the world to be most sustainable campus, and that's what the university website says. At the moment, I feel like there is always more we can do. And one of the points I would be raising with the university as elected president would be to support the local buses. And we know Newcastle City has been introduced water buses, which are fully electric, and students should be provided access to them. And the cost should be covered in tuition fee, because students pay a huge amount. And we as students, why can't Newcastle University be the first among the UK to introduce new measures of sustainability? And that's like reducing emissions of transportation, reducing materials on campus. I know there has been a lot done on sustainability, and some societies like People and Planet are doing amazing, but then we can't do more.
Sorry. And I'd like to ask all of the other candidates, why did sustainability not feature in any of your manifestos, and do you have plans in that area?
If I could go, the reason I don't have anything about sustainability in there is not because I don't believe in it. I think it's very important, but I think that like a lot of things, it's kind of just surface level when the problems with the universities are much deeper. Like, okay, we can have like sustainability, we can have, electric buses and that type of thing, but students are still constantly being ignored on the important things. We're not getting the right support. We're being ignored when we actually go to and write petitions and actually mobilize. It's just not as important as the other things that I mentioned in the manifesto, in my opinion.
I did actually mention it in my sort of introduction on my manifesto, that I would like to create a sustainable community. I think the reason it wasn't one of my main points is because I do think that at the Newcastle is doing really well in this area. And I also know that recently there have been introduction of green pledges and things like this, and they've created quite a good system where you can come forward with ways in which we can increase the sustainability of the university. So it's not that I don't think it's important, and I certainly want to utilise that information feedback that's going to come forward through that. It's just sort of that I felt as though there were other pressing issues, and as this is an area that we're doing well, it's something that I can enhance upon, but that I wanted to focus my specific manifesto points just on other areas. But yeah, did include it in my introduction because I do think it's really, really important, and especially if we want to be more of a sort of global university as well.
So just to hop in here, my degree is actually a lot about renewables. So I do a lot of work with renewables at the moment. It's part of my dissertation and things. So I am aware of the problems that we face as a society and the things that we can be doing to make them better. But I do think that at the moment the union is doing a lot to help improve the environment. I do think that the union is taking steps, as Abby said. I think Abby is right there that the union does do a lot of work to that. We do have an environment representative already, and we do have lots of people there. But as I say, in my manifesto, it says that I will openly accept any suggestion from the student body to help keep my manifesto organic and unentrenched. So if people want to come forward with suggestions on policy that could that they feel would help improve the environment, and I agree with them, then yeah, I've got no problem taking that on board and trying to implement it. Definitely.
Yeah, I'm mostly a similar vein with Chris, Abby, and Callum in the fact that I think the union's doing really well at the moment. It can be improved. It can always be improved, but there's a lot more pressing issues at the moment. And like Chris said, I've got a Q&A session tomorrow. So if anyone wants to message me about any renewable ideas, and I agree with them as well, that'll be something I'll add to the manifesto. But right now, I think we have more pressing issues. It's not unimportant. It's quite important, but I think we're doing really well at the moment. And it's just about topping that up and carrying on and keeping fighting. Thank you.
Can you jump on this, please, for just a few seconds?
Yeah, sure. You've got 30 seconds.
Sustainability is a global issue at the moment, and climate change is a global issue. It's not just a university. And if Newcastle University being a leader of it, we are targeting the global, and our ranking would just jump above. And we want our students to be graduated from the most prestigious university, and that's essentially what my aim is. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone going to come back to that?
If I could, yeah. With regard to student, about rankings and stuff, Newcastle University is plummeting down the University League table, and it's not about sustainability. It's the fact that students aren't being listened to, and that students are so dissatisfied with the experience. I agree that sustainability is important to tackle sexual violence on campus, which NUSU has done less than nothing. I think it's actually disgraceful how little NUSU has done in this regard. And it's much more important to focus on things like that than in sustainability, which is still important.
I'd like to ask you a question on that one, Callum.
Yeah.
So it's normally the Student Disciplinary Committee which deals with sexual harassment complaints and follows them through. Why would you prefer that NUSU step in, and what would you propose they do?
Oh, no, it's just, I have first-hand experience of taking things to NUSU, and NUSU basically told us that we've done everything right and then didn't actually act on the stuff that were handed over. I also have a lot of people told us stories about NUSU, and yeah, I know it's like circumstantial, all of that stuff, but I know that in NUSU, and this person might actually be watching this, an unelected person in NUSU has heard stories of somebody committing sexual assault and actively ignored it, and then supported that person on separate matters, and it's absolutely disgusting. And yeah, it needs to be sorted out, and that's why I'll open straight away. I'll open an investigation into NUSU's dealing with sexual violence on campus if elected.
Can I jump in here as well? Yeah. So I think that there's some incredible things being done in this area by the It Happens Here Society. I went to an event with them the other day where they were talking about allyship and when it comes to sexual assault, and I think that it would be great if there could be more collaboration with them, also to do some more campaigns on campus regarding consent and things like that. I think that is, I agree with Callum, that there needs to be a lot more improvement in that area. But yeah, I think there's definitely societies who are actually doing really great things, and it would be great to have more collaboration with them and get greater input on this issue.
Can I jump in as well? I'd just like to say, I completely agree with Callum and Abby, and I think that society committee members should also have specialist training, because at the moment, if you're a committee member, you don't have anything. And I think you should, because you might find a person within your society that you're, in terms of, responsible for, and if you don't have the right specialist training, you can make that situation worse, or they can drop out, and it just creates a death spiral. I think that's another point that we need to be addressing here. There are great societies that are doing great work, but they should be supported more. But also the committee members within the societies, all societies, should have someone with specialist training, or at least one person with it, or all the committee members with specialist training there, rather than just take it to NUSU, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I think that is the case with It Happens Here. They have had training, but I agree it could go a lot further, and it should go a lot further.
Could I really quickly jump in, or would that be okay?
Yeah. You got
cool. So I've experienced from a distance things of this nature. I've seen the union completely ignore things, and I'm sure that many people who do come to council have seen that I've spoken out about this numerous times, and have confronted people in council over this before. I do think it's a big problem, and I totally agree with Callum that it does not go far enough, and I do think that the union should be taking a far more proactive approach to make sure that our students are protected. I really do think it affects people's experience, and that's really not very fair. That's just not on.
I think it can more create trauma than affect their experience, but yeah.
We have to move on.
Can I jump in quickly?
I think we've got to move on. I'm sorry, his name.
Oh, sorry.
So first years are more likely to be coming in this year who are vastly underqualified because of approximated A-level results. And similarly, students are more likely this year to be progressing to stages that they're underqualified for. So none of you have mentioned this in your manifestos. How do you plan to tackle this learning gap?
Can you ask that question again, but slower, please? Sorry, I didn't quite catch that.
Yeah, no,
Yes.
sorry, I was speaking quite quickly. First years are more likely to be coming in this year who are vastly underqualified because of approximated A-level results. Similarly, students are more likely to be progressing to stages that they're unprepared for because of the challenges of online learning. None of you have addressed this in your manifesto, so how do you plan to tackle this knowledge gap?
If I could go on, in the manifesto, I did mention that I'd support safety net, and I think this is something that needs to be looked into because it's not a unique thing to Newcastle University. It'll be happening all over the country that these, people have come to the university not having the same education as previous years have, and I think that we need to support and rally behind safety nets for these people and make sure that the faculty realise, how this is working and the way that people have been kind of left behind, and make sure that grades represent that.
I also think that this is going to have affected different teaching departments differently. So, for instance, people who need more in-person practical teaching, they might be more greatly affected. And I think that this comes back to my point earlier about wanting to really enhance this student impact survey to find out which teaching departments feel like they have really lagged, and to really pinpoint exactly where this knowledge gap is so that we can work from there. In regards to students who are transitioning into uni, I think that, as I've said, one of my manifesto points is actually the transition out of university. But yeah, the transition in is also a really intense part of your life. And I think that there should be more focus on the Writing Development Centre kind of policies, but from teaching departments themselves.
I'm afraid we've got to stop there. Thank you.
Well, I think, again, this is a national issue, not just an issue specific to Newcastle, and I think that those students do need our support, obviously. I think that the most obvious course of action is to lobby the university to put in more support structures for those students, because clearly they're going to need those support structures, and obviously the university is going to want to take in a certain number of students, and they are going to do that, and we are just going to have to be prepared for it. Now, again, what can we do about it now? Well, we don't know, because we can't see the future and we don't know what it's going to be like. But I think the best course of action there is just to try and prepare for it, make sure the university is more aware that this will be the case, and go from there.
Lucy, answering your question, all of us, we are in a transition now from pandemic to post-pandemic or prolonged pandemic. And that's one of the reasons why my manifesto is on a holistic approach. It does not cover specific point, but this does include specific points like safety nets, like student support, and all the facilities university has to provide to students. Well, that's why I am initially, we started off this year with present in-person teaching, then we have to shift to remote learning and all this stuff going on. A free safety net is very important, and then our university has state-of-the-art faculty members, and we need to liaise with them, the students' union, to have a good support with the staff members to provide extraordinary services to the students and to improve the students' life. Thank you.
Tom?
I concur with Callum, Chris, and Hussein, name, that the safety nets needs to be introduced. I do, in my opinion, want to wait and see how the situation progresses, because you don't know what it's going to be like in even 2 to 3 weeks. So I do think a safety net needs to be introduced. I did think it was introduced a bit too late last year. Maybe they're looking towards the end of Easter is where they should introduce it this time and work out where they're at.
Thank you. And then on with this year's student cohort, and if so, how will you change the university or government's mind and add work that Dorothy has done on a national basis?
You cut off at the beginning, Lucy.
Sorry. Will you push for rent rebates for this year's cohort? And if so, how will you change the university or government's mind and add to the work that Dorothy has done on a national basis? Callum, I'll start with you.
100%. In my opinion, all students were effectively forced into going with student accommodation. The ones who went to student accommodation were effectively forced into it this year. We'll be told way too late about what was going on with the university. So anyone in student accommodation, whether they were there or not, should get full refunds, in my opinion. The other thing is people in private accommodation, which is a lot more of a shaky area. The one thing I will say is that I think the university or NUSU needs to stop supporting predatory letting companies such as Walton Robinson and actively letting them on campus to advertise, which is disgusting. NUSU knows how bad they are, but they still support it, and that needs to end.
Callum, I'm just going to push you on that one, actually. We already have the SAP on campus, which means that predatory letting companies can't advertise on campus and they can't attend students' residential fairs. What more are you going to do than that?
No, well, this is the thing. They were there, I think, last year in the basement of NUSU. They were there, and I think it was brought up a few months ago. I was speaking to someone who said that NUSU has things in place where if they get reported to NUSU, then they'll look into it, but they don't have enough evidence, which, in my opinion, just isn't good enough. They do have evidence; it's clear, but you need students to just keep reporting it. It's wrong. I don't think there's enough in place, or NUSU's just simply not listening to students. Everyone knows about Walton Robinson. Everyone, there's no debate.
Sorry, I've got to stop you there, Callum. Abby, would you like to go?
Oh, sorry, I lost you for a second there. Yeah, no, I would completely agree in that. I think that it's just a fundamental right that you should get your rent back when you've been told that you cannot live there. It seems ridiculous that students are even having to fight for rent rebates. I think that goes higher up, and I think that the government should also be taking students into consideration far more than what they are. I found it quite frustrating when I listened to the student council meeting where Chris Day was talking about the fact that it would cost the university £11 million to return those rent rebates, as if it was almost an act of charity towards students. I think that it should just be absolutely, they should be proactive in saying this needs to happen because you were told that you couldn't come back to campus. And yeah, I will really fight for that one, because I believe that it's wrong that students have even had to pick up a fight. And if we do, it will take effort from...
Sorry, I'm going to have to cut you off there. His name?
That's okay.
I'm afraid, but Lucy, both of these other candidates fail to answer your question. On a national level, how are we going to address this issue? I know Dorothy has been working extensively hard on this, and it's just the students fail to recognize the efforts of student union. And myself, as international officer, I work hard on a national scale. I gathered the support on a Russell Group University, so I campaigned on a Russell Group University to campaign the government for international tuition fee refund, and that's my strategy for rent rebates for next year. And for this year we are living in, I have been writing to MP, and as a student, I feel like all of us have an equal right to write to our local MP, which I feel like I don't need a power to write to a local MP. It's just a student. If I feel like, and I never wrote for myself because I'm staying here, but my friends are living outside the UK and they're still paying, or even they're staying outside Newcastle and I'm paying. I wrote on behalf of my friends, and that's what I will be doing on behalf of Newcastle University students if I'm elected as president. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris?
So obviously a big part of my manifesto is to try and demand a 1/3 refund for tuition fees in regard to actual renting for accommodation. I was quite lucky. In fact, I was extremely lucky that my landlord was a private student halls company that did give me a full refund for the amount of time that I lost. I know that there are many students who didn't get any money whatsoever, and I played and simple, I think we should be demanding that the university gives their students their rents back. It's the university that owns those halls. The university should be giving their money back. Private landlords, obviously, it's a bit different because they're not associated to the university. But perhaps we could adopt a system where NUSU simply refuses to advertise landlords which didn't return their money.
Tom, would you like to go?
Yeah, I think I support rent rebates like everyone else here. I mean, the way that the university was sending frog poems at the end of this year, at the end of last year, rather than sorting something out about this, is stupid. Especially since you work out that especially with uni students, are rushed into housing at the start. There's not much that much information. Only if you constantly look for it. Like I said, this is to do with the online schemes. If you ramp that up a bit, this year just gone, all I could see was one story on their Instagram and a link to the website. Now, if you didn't know where exactly to look on the website, that Insta story's gone in 24 hours, and then you've got no support. And like Callum said, Walton Robinson are awful. I had my second year, and the ones I've got now, it's like night and day difference. And there needs to be something done about that, especially with how Hussein said, with the international students on a national level. You need to sort out the guarantors on that.
Lucy, just for 10 seconds, can I add on just for 10 seconds? I know Dorothy has been working with Vice Chancellor to give out a letter to all private accommodations, I mean non-university owned accommodations. Have these accommodations provided refund? I don't think so. That's something we want the government to enforce them, because Students' Union is working. University has been working with Students' Union, and like the case of Dorothy is an evidence. We have a letter sent out to the private accommodations, but they are not giving the refunds back. And that's where we need to go to government to enforce them to work with the Students' Union and respect what Students' Union do.
Thank you. Does anyone have anything to add?
Yeah, one thing I will just say quickly is that I understand why you'd want to try and petition the government on that, but I'm not sure if I'm just being a realist or what, but I can't see a Conservative government ever backing down on something like this. It just seems almost impossible. Another thing I'll say is that you can write to your MPs, and I support, democracy, all of that stuff, but all of our local MPs are Labour MPs. So if you write to them, even if you get every Labour MP in the country to support it, there's still a massive Tory majority. What I think we should do is concentrate on Newcastle, and I just don't see it possible to work on a national scale.
Thank you. So what are you proposing, Callum?
I think that we should make sure that the sabbatical officers that get elected fight on behalf of students and make sure that these rent rebates are put forward at Newcastle. I also think another thing just to quickly mention is that Universities UK, it works for the government. They work together. It's not going to happen.
Lucy, can I just jump in and say that I think it's really important to acknowledge that all university students in halls of accommodation were given rent rebates by the university, which is something that we campaigned really hard for. On terms of taking a regional approach, I think that's important, and we have been working with the local council to kind of spear that along. But I think, when it comes to private accommodation for next year, it has to be a national approach in which the government regulates private accommodation, in which the government regulates landlords, because I think it's really important to acknowledge the fact that rent rebates were given by university halls.
Well, thank you, Dorothy, for seconding my point.
Can I just say one last thing? It's just that I agree that it needs to be a national effort. I didn't explain myself well. What I mean is that it can't be top down. It can't be SAB officers and the universe going to the university because we haven't been listened to. It needs to be a grassroots movement, and the SABs need to support a grassroots movement, not doing it by themselves, because it just won't work. We haven't been listened to this year.
Thank you, Callum. I'm going to direct this next question towards you. You said that you're going to treat the university with the same contempt that they've treated us. Your job's to negotiate and cooperate with the university whilst representing students to local council and nationally. Surely a contemptuous relationship is just going to backfire on students.
Absolutely not. We've seen this year that playing nice with the university hasn't worked. We've been shot down, we've been pushed back on absolutely everything. The little things that we have got, like the pathetic excuse for a safety net, it's just not good enough. And we need the sabbatical officers to actually stand up and start telling the university that we work for the students and we don't just work like in tandem with them. The students are important. I don't care about the university.
Thank you. My next question is for Abby. Can you all hear me okay? It says my internet.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's-
Perfect, thank you. Abby, you said that you want to improve the social experience of students. How do you plan to do that?
Yeah, so I plan to do this through 3 phases. The first one is recognising the experience that they've had this year and the areas in which they want it to be improved. And I think that we can do that by making this student survey better. I also think then that we need to continue efforts to campaign to get tuition refunds to compensate for that. So that shows the accountability from the fact that the experience has been lost this year. And then also just using that information to enforce policies next year and change. So I want to make sure that campus is always thriving, that there are multiple events going on that will appeal to multiple people. They also, I believe, need to be blended so that they're also online, digital, as well as in person, because I still think that there will be this COVID recovery and the potential for other variants. So I think that we need to make sure that they are blended social events and also to compensate for freshers who haven't had a freshers week.
Sorry about that. Would anyone else like to respond to that?
Can I, please?
Yes.
So is it about social life of students?
Yes, social experience.
Yes, social experience. So has any one of you thought about International Culture Week being celebrated at the university? Have you ever thought about like having street food of all the cuisines from the world on King's Walk? That's something we can enhance. That's something like proposes. And then in-person teaching is essential. Like that's one way of university experience. And even if it's digital vendor teaching for next year, we need to do something more than what is being done now. We need to have open approach and creative approaches to tackle this issue. It's not just Newcastle. I mean, social issues, I feel like we should give confidence to our societies and then additional fund to our societies to host international trips. I mean, my friends from USA, from Ivy Leagues, they could go to Greece. Why can't we? Sorry.
Does anyone else have anything to say on that?
Yeah, I, as you see in my manifesto, I really do believe in giving more money to societies. I think that societies are the backbone of the union. They're probably one of the most important things that the union does. I think that student-led organisations really make the difference. They help with representation. They help with diversity and inclusion. They help with making the student experience better overall. And I really do think that the more funding we can give them, the better. You know, obviously, as well, I would say a well-run union should be giving students a good experience anyway, right? A union where students feel well represented would give students a good experience.
Can I jump in on this one?
Yes.
So I do think also some societies, I mean, especially FemSoc, who I've been an active part of this year, have done really well in moving digitally and online. And I think that it would be great to create like a support pack and greater guidance now that we have learned some of these lessons on how to make digital social experience better, so that we can help every society to improve as well. So I think that we have learnt lessons this year and we can take that into if there were to be further lockdowns and the need for digital social events.
Thank you. Tom, would you like to respond to this one?
Yeah, a bit more on Chris's point of the society as the backbone of the uni. Especially I think this year with sports memberships, I know they were eventually forgiven, but before that they finally standardized it, so you didn't have to pay for a silver one if you only wanted to pay intramural sport. And then gold one if you wanted to use the gym as well. I want to make sure that carries on next year and they don't forget about that, because it's all about trying to get the students that are first years as well, get them out and get them into sports teams, they're making new friends. I want to try and make sure you get a monthly option on that. So, you know, there's not like a financial barrier if someone only wants to play for a bit, and then you've got that wider network, because I feel sorry for the first years coming in and probably the ones coming in next year as well, where they're just going to be cut off on their own, and we need to be doing something about that.
And I think also, Tom, for helping people who would like to get back into sports, I think some...
Lucy, can I jump in here just for a few minutes? Seconds?
Abby speaking, and then you're free to.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I just think that it would be good to also make this more accessible, like you're saying, Tom, so that students who might want to get back into sports or maybe don't feel as confident, they might not be in that like national teams. That can be really intimidating, thinking it's all about the sports teams, but actually creating more avenues for students who just want to get involved. And yeah, that might not mean they want to pay loads of money for gym membership.
Thank you. Husnain, you've got 15
Abby,
seconds.
developing on your points, one of my manifesto point is university life to enhance mental and physical well-being. I know university is doing a lot of mental well-being, but after this year, one thing we all need to know is we need physical well-being after staying in the lockdowns. And that's why I feel like as a president, I would be mitigating the cost associated with sporting and societies.
Sorry about that. This next question is directed specifically at Chris Winter. Chris, it's just come through that your supporters have been making nasty and inappropriate comments in the YouTube stream. Do you endorse this about the other candidates?
Well, can you give me a second to check the stream? Would that be all right? I haven't seen this.
They're being moderated out by the moderators at the moment.
Well, if they're saying cruel and bad things, then yeah, I would like to ask them to stop. That doesn't help anyone. I don't know who these people are. But I do apologise if they've been causing people problems. I don't know who these people are.
Thank you, Chris. On that topic, I'll move onto a question for you. One of your campaign features the slogan, "Who controls the council controls the university, who controls the union controls the council." Unions and councils are about collective action, not control. So why, of all influences, is your campaign inspired by the authoritarian government of Orwell's 1984?
Yeah, it's a meme.
Your campaign slogan is inspired by a meme?
That's not my campaign slogan.
It was on your social media as a slogan for your
That was on a video. That was on a individual video on the page. My campaign slogan is "Win with Winter" or "Save the Union." That specific line is a parody of Orwell's of one of Orwell's lines. Yeah.
Thank you. Would anyone like to respond to that? Okay. I'll ask another question towards you, Chris, about your manifesto. You've committed to a freedom of expression charter from the university. How is this going to be any different to the freedom of speech regulations from the OSS that the university is already held to?
Oh, well, I just feel as though we should sign a freedom of speech charter. I think it would be better to have another one. I was not aware of the government ruling which came out actually a few days after my manifesto was published in regard to freedom of speech. But I feel as though we should be doing as much as possible to enshrine students' freedom of speech, and the more we can do, the better. And as I say, if the union already has signed a freedom of speech charter, what was it you say? OSS? What
OSS regulations, they've always been there.
Yeah. So if they've already signed that, then that's absolutely fine. And then hey, maybe we don't have to do that. But if I look at those and I think, well, they aren't good enough, then yes, I would like to institute my own freedom of speech charter.
Have you not looked at them already?
No.
Okay, thank you. This next question is for Thomas. Thomas, you've campaigned for expansion of wellbeing services by increasing the availability of appointments. The current waiting time for initial contact from the wellbeing service after expressing interest is 4 days. Which aspect of the wellbeing service is it that you'd like to improve?
Well, I kind of want to increase the fact that it doesn't work on weekends. There's only a line for people that are in trouble, and someone might not be in trouble but can't wait till the weekend, if you know what I mean, till the weekend's over, and I want to sort that out. I just want to make sure that, especially in a time like this, we're being proactive and seeking people out rather than just waiting for them to get in contact.
How will you be proactive and seek people out?
Well, I think it needs to be drummed into the wellbeing service that it's not just a reactive service, and that they're emailing lecturers and students and just trying to make sure that we're there, because people sometimes don't have power, people sometimes don't have internet, and you need to be sorting that out.
Thank you. I would like to add that if any student is ever in a mental health emergency, the wellbeing service are available. Their emergent services are available on 7 days a week, not just the weekends.
Can
No,
I
sorry,
jump on it?
Hussein, go ahead. You've got 40 seconds.
With the well-being, as Thomas said, that's good, but I feel like we need more than just a well-being office and students union. We have student ambassadors like course reps, like hall reps, and all these student ambassadors. We need to give. If I'm if I'm the president, I feel like we need to give them training, all these ambassadors, and then they would be taking care of their surroundings. So, for instance, if a student is struggling in a class, he or she should go to the course rep, or the course rep should know the feeling, and he or she should help the student out. That's one way of expanding well-being. That's one way of integrating and using the existing facilities of Students' Union. Thank you.
Can I jump in here as well? Yes, so I also think there needs to be greater pledges from teaching departments, because something I've really noticed this term from sort of lack of forward thinking when it came to implementing the initial week's extension in January is that there ended up being so much pressure in a short period of time with other assignments. And I think that timetabling by teaching departments can be really detrimental. I mean, I've been sort of crying a lot more than I normally would have because of the additional pressures that have come from teaching departments. And I think that there could be more effort to make sure that there are greater pledges from those areas, because there are unique issues in different subject areas, especially when you think about the fact that some medics have been on placements actually in COVID wards. And I think that there should be more teaching department effort for mental wellbeing.
Sorry,
as
Abby,
well.
I was on mute. I need to give someone else the chance to speak. Would anyone like to answer that question, respond?
Oh, can I add to what Abby said?
Yeah, go.
Yeah.
You've got
yeah. With the education officers debates, I think it was on Monday, Olivia Scott came up with brought up something that was really good, is that the fact that there's not with timetabling, like Abby said, there isn't any like mandate that you can't have 2 deadlines within like 48 hours. We need to be trying to support the education officer and moving towards that.
Thank you. Does anyone else have a comment on the wellbeing service, or should I move on?
Can you go again, please?
Okay, I'm going to social media channel. Hussein? Oh, sorry. I think there was a lag on the Zoom. Go ahead. You've got 30 seconds.
Sorry. So one of my manifesto point is decolonizing union, which is strengthening the collaboration between the liberation officers, and each liberation officer represents their specific community. And if we have a good integrated approach with these liberation officers, I feel like we have the student union president or the student union sabbatical officers have access to all the committees, the communities within university, and that's how we can increase well-being between the societies and students. Thank you.
Thank you, Hussein. Okay, I'm going to move on to questions from the audience. I'm only going to give you 20 seconds each to answer these questions, if you'd like to, just so that we can get through as many as possible. So this question's come from Facebook. My question is for Callum and Chris. Both of their manifestos talk about asking for an apology from the university. How are they going to make that happen?
If I can go first, I mean, like it's one of those things where the university is clearly in the wrong. But just on the cyber attack alone, if we take that by itself, how have we not been compensated for that? That we deserve an apology on that, plain and simple.
Okay, Chris?
Yep, I think that the union, much as Callum says, I think the union does need to, sorry, not the university does need to apologise to us. I think that we are owed an apology. The question, how are you going to make that happen, isn't really very, very relevant. I'm going to ask, I'm going to demand, and if they don't submit an apology, well, that just shows that they're not willing to go further with that, and that's on them, not on us.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question to these both on this policy thing?
Yes.
So what apology to you guys, what will you guys do?
Are you
Sorry, you cut out.
So what if the university does not provide the apology? What will you guys do?
Callum?
Then well, personally, then just keep working towards the other manifesto promises and making sure that we get the money that we deserve. Where the apology is basically like The cherry on top, basically, with the money's important, the apology would be nice if the university was big enough to do it.
Absolutely agree with Callum there. The apology is the apology. It's to show them that they appreciate that they messed up and they're willing to say sorry. At the end of the day, if they're not willing to do that, well, that's just bad faith on their part.
Adding on, I feel like just my vision, I feel like a compensation is more essential than an apology. And as a students' union sabbatical officer, we have to liaise with the university and we have to work with them for the better interest of the students. We just, students want money back and compensation. A simple apology wouldn't improve the student's life or the frustration and anger students have for the university. It's more than an apology. We need some sort of financial compensation and some sort of compensation.
Get a few more questions before.
Can I ask Hussein a question? Can I ask Hussein a question?
No, we have to.
Does he not feel as though he's owed an apology?
Chris, I'm sorry, we have to go to the questions from social media. So this is from Tobias Lawrence on YouTube. It's a question for Chris. NUSU is a charity. How do you expect it to invest in industries while simultaneously conducting a spending review or cut so-called inefficiencies? That's something that you've advocated as well in your manifesto.
Yeah. Pardon?
You've got 20 seconds.
The union should have a spending review if we're wasting too much money on certain things, and I'm not saying we are, I'm just saying if we are, then we should be making spending cuts and putting those savings back towards the students, preferably towards societies, because societies are good. Yeah, that's what I'd say to that.
Thank you. Chris, I'd just like to ask you, how is this spending review any different from the annual audit that gets done for the union anyway?
Well, because it would be being done by me and not by the union.
You would be conducting this review?
Yes.
Okay. How is that going to be monitored so that there's no bias there? How is it going to be monitored so that
there would be a bias because I'd be running it. I am biased towards my own biases. Obviously, you know, if we want to have checks and balances in place, the union does have checks and balances in place to make sure people don't go overboard with things. And obviously, we would be making sure that, you know, things weren't going overboard. But of course, there are going to be biases. You know. Okay. The union is biased, you know, towards itself. You know, of course, it's going to be the situation. My bias is towards giving money back to students, or at least giving money back to societies. I'm sure that's something everyone could agree with.
Okay, how are you going to justify then what's reasonable and what's wastage?
Well, those answers will be answered in good time.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Chris as well, is like, all I can see from this happening is the investment's going to go into like engineering companies and stuff like that. And then you're creating a university where some courses are worth more than others. I just want to see what he wants to do about that.
That's a really legitimate question. I understand that. So I do see there, Tom. My take on it is simple. The union should have a stake in our learning. Because if we're doing well, the union's doing well, right? If students are doing well, then therefore the union is doing well. I think we can all agree on that. Now, surely you would agree with me that to support our students who have left university, we should be taking steps to invest in industries that they go into. Obviously, there are already some rules about which industries we can't invest into. So we can't invest into like oil companies, for example. But, you know, there are a plethora of other companies which wouldn't fall under those rules, which we could be.
Chris, I'm going to have to put you off there. Dorothy, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I just think, you know, when we make comments like this, it's really important to understand that the president is not the overall budget holder for the university. The activities officer holds the budget for societies, and societies already have their own budget. The athletic union officer holds the budget for sports. And so when we talk about like refinancing the uni or repurposing money across the university, I think it's really important to understand that the president actually doesn't hold very many budgets in the end, and that there is a NUSU finance committee in which students do volunteer to sit on NUSU finance committee. So any spending that the union does is that there are students that are involved in that input.
Can I speak on this one first in just 10 seconds?
Sure. 10 seconds.
I'm sorry, Christopher, the way I see you is taking an autocratic style of leadership, which is not really good for 29,000 Newcastle University students. I'm sure university students want a democratic style of leadership where we as president, I don't know, whoever of us, we just want for the benefit of student side. and we should be working with all the sabbatical and revision officers and from students' representatives. We just can't take the budget in our hand. I mean, 29,000 students can't trust just one of us for transparency. We need to have a democratic style of leadership. That's all.
I agree with you saying
Can
that.
I respond to that?
Yeah, sure. You've got 20 seconds.
Well, if I'm elected by the student body, then that would be a democratic mandate. Also, you know, I'm sure we would bring on other people to that team. You know, goodness me, I won't be able to do it all on my own. You know, I'm sure we bring on, you know, more than one person on that team.
Well, you just said you would be doing it yourself alone. You just said that, and now you're contradicting your words.
Okay, you've made a reasonable point. I understand that point. I'm saying if I can't do it on my own, yes, I would have more people. You know, that's not a hard change to make, is it? You know.
Okay, thanks, Chris. I'm going to move on to another question. This next one's for Husnain. How is it appropriate? This comes from YouTube. This comes from Charlotte, by the way. How is it appropriate to use school reps, fellow students, as counsellors?
As counsellors?
Yeah, this has come from YouTube. So is this something that you've advocated?
Not really.
Okay. Oh, okay, we'll move on to a different one then. Sorry about that. This one's on YouTube and it's from Finley Holden and it's for Abby. You said you didn't feel ready for this role as an undergrad. What's changed now so that you are ready?
I think that as an undergraduate, I might have had a bit of imposter syndrome going on when I was looking at this role. I think it's just because I see it as having so much responsibility because you need to represent all students and you need to fight for their interests. And I think that I found a little bit intimidating. But since then, I have had greater professional experience. My confidence has grown as a person, and I just feel more ready now to come. And especially, I think this year in particular, seeing how it actually is so awful how basically 2 years of most people's university experience at the moment has been ruined by COVID. And so I think that motivates me well and makes me feel really ready.
So this one is from YouTube and it's from Leon Busfield and it's for Chris Winters. Chris, the average student graduate starting salary is £29,000. How do you find it financially feasible to give away half of a sum that is already 1/3 lower than you should expect to earn? Furthermore, do you believe that or expect future presidents to all be able to turn down £10,000? This is in reference to the manifesto point about giving away half your salary.
Yeah. So obviously that point is because I feel as though the union isn't doing enough to support societies, and I do want to support societies. So I would be, you know, giving away half of my wage for that if I were elected. You know, I'm not going to pretend like living on a half a wage would be easy, but I'm not going to say it would be. I'm not going to say that it would be easy. I'm not pretending like that would be an easy choice to make, but I'm willing to do it. So.
Do you feel that societies are not getting enough money already? Because
I feel as though societies aren't getting enough money, yes.
Because every society gets allocated money based on how many members they have. So
I know.
If societies aren't appealing to members, then they won't get funded. That's
I know, but I know how it works. I've been in societies my entire time at university. What I'm saying is that societies need more money because they're really important, and I'm willing to give them that money.
Just to hop in here as well, I think in addition to your point, Lucy, societies also have access to special grants that they can apply for. There's like, I think 100k in the budget or something like that, that societies are free and able to apply for in case they want to do anything.
Can I just pop in on this, please?
Yeah, you've got 30 seconds.
Yeah. No, but what Chris is promising, I think it's very noble. But my problem is that I think it sets a dangerous precedent that people who become sabbatical officers have to fund what they want, and it doesn't come out of the NUSU. I found out that usually it didn't happen this year, that sabbatical officers get taken by the SU on like some getaway retreat when they get elected. That amount of money there, that could have been used for drug testing kits, and we've had 2 deaths this year, and that's where that money could have went. Drug testing kits got cancelled 5 years ago, and we have that money wasted, in my opinion.
30 seconds, sorry. Moving on.
Can I add something?
Okay, sure. 30 seconds.
Okay, I just think, to concur with Callum, I think it sets a dangerous precedent because I think it'll make sabbatical officers' positions restrictive to only those who are middle class and up. I think you're going to stop getting ideas and influences from the working class, lower to middle as well. And I think it seems a dangerous precedent. I know it's a great idea in theory, but I think you're going to make the positions really restrictive. And just on the drug policy as well, I think that's an excellent idea by Callum, and I'm doing the same on my manifesto.
I mean, I am working class, but okay.
Hussein, you wanted to say something?
Dorothy, could you tell how many societies do we have within the university, within NUSU?
I'm not the activities officer, but I think
I mean,
it's
is it somewhere
upwards of
200? I guess it's somewhere 200.
165 and up, and then about 870 sports societies. Sports clubs.
165. So if we divide 10,000 by 165, we're giving away £60 per society. Is it going to make any difference? Rather than we should give authority to the societies to conduct more business on a regional scale to get their own money, and that's sustainable societies. I mean, £60 for a society, I don't think it's going to make a huge difference, but we need to give them more authority to do business and generate their own income.
Thanks, Hussein. I'm going to ask this question because it's been asked by multiple people. Question for all candidates: what is the main area that you feel that the uni isn't investing enough into and that should therefore increase funding for? And this links to another question as well that's been asked a few times. Where is this funding going to come from in your plan? Abby, would you like to start?
Yeah, sorry, can you just repeat the question? Because I was listening, but I feel as though I didn't process it properly.
No, I was speaking quickly. What is the area that the university does not invest?
Sorry, Lucy, you cut out.
Sorry.
She's saying, what is the area that the university doesn't currently invest enough in, and where would you get the money from?
Okay, so I think this year the area that they've not invested enough in would be to support remote learning. Students have had to fully support themselves in terms of the electricity they use, their Wi-Fi, you know, all of those things. That the money that has basically gone on premises this year, I think, should be going towards helping students. And I know that the university has said that they have had to spend more money adapting to the online experience, but I just feel as though there should be more compensation for the fact that we've not been on campus. And so I would take it from the money that's being spent on premises currently to support more resources.
I'm sorry, Chris, would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, well, as I've said before, I think the biggest thing that we should be doing is increasing money for societies, increasing money for welfare, increasing money to put it into more social spaces for students for their return post lockdown. And as I've said before, that money will come from cuts in different areas and from myself.
Thank you, Callum.
Yeah, just what I said before about drug testing kits. We had them, I think, in 2014-15. The NUSU didn't have the money to fund it, apparently. And now this year we've had deaths because that could have been prevented by it. That, I think, could easily come out of the wasted money from NUSU to taking sabbatical offices abroad. I'm sure there'll be many other, not abroad, but like on holiday, basically. And I'm sure there's many other things like that as well.
Thank you. Hussein?
What is the primary purpose of a university? Primarily, it's education. So I feel like if the university is saving on electricity and all these associated costs, the university should provide on digital infrastructure, which includes, I feel like every student should be given an iPad or a laptop, or they should be given a fund to get it. I know the university is working, but that's just emergency fund being allocated, whereas all the students should be given a choice to opt for it. And if the students don't want to willingly, then it's the university decision to just donate it, or just do whatever they want. But students should be given a choice.
Sorry, that's all we've got time for. Tom?
Yeah, I agree with Callum and Abby, and I think the drug testing policy is really key here, because we've had people going to uni and not coming back, and their parents, I don't know how they're living right now. And then also, I think with the remote learning, I think we need to make the cluster rooms 24/7, because they're treating us like kids at the moment. You can't be around a computer. They've got enough CCTV, they've got enough smart card entrances. I don't understand how you can't do that. And I think I'd get it from the wasted money that they spent patrolling up and down Newcastle High Street and the campus on students with the little COVID watchmen, which I think was a complete waste of money. And it just creates an entrance view between the uni and the SU.
Thanks, Tom.
I add something as well?
I'm afraid we're going to have to move on. We've only got 2 more questions, then it'll be time for closing statements. The last question, the last individual question is going to be directed at Chris. Chris, you've said that you want to lobby for £1 pints in the SU as one of your manifesto points. Why is using money to discount alcoholic drinks of such a high priority? And are you aware that if the SU detaches from the sensible drinking policy that they have stood to for so long, they will lose a lot of funding from the university? Is that a worthwhile exchange?
Well, I feel as though how does precisely going to a £1 pint make it not sensible drinking policy? Is there a specific rule? Is there a specific rule? Is there a specific rule that says that a £1 pint means that it will no longer be safe drinking policy?
I think it's more about, so we spend a lot of time lobbying to keep students safe, and I guess £1 pints would go against that kind of policy because it makes it hyper easy to
council, and I know how she's working and all the work she's doing, and I do appreciate and Dorothy is being elected by students. My manifesto point of sustainability reflects on Dorothy's point.
Sorry, I'm going to have to stop you there. We're having tech issues, so are we okay to wait 3 minutes?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Sorry about that. It's not really compatible with the whole debate form where you answer immediately, but we're going to have to wait. So I'll wait for the go ahead from the tech team. Okay, we're back on. We're good to go. Husnain, sorry, carry on. You're welcome to start from the beginning, and I'll retime.
Yes, I've been working with Dorothy this entire time this year within the Students' Council, and I know the work she's been doing, and I do appreciate it. I mean, my point on sustainability is advancing the point she made in her manifesto. I have studied her manifesto, and I know what work she's doing. So I'm fully aware of the work she's doing.
Okay, thank you. Tom, why didn't you...
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, more like Callum is, I wanted to focus on the students and get a reflective manifesto. That way I have been following Dorothy like Abby has on social media and seeing what work she's been doing with decolonisation of the university and stuff like that. But I wanted to really focus on the students because that's the people I'll be representing.
Thank you very much. Okay, Dorothy, would you like to say anything before the closing statements?
I guess I just have one question for the candidates, if that's okay, Lucy. Or do you want me to make a comment rather than a question?
Is that okay, producers? Yes, go ahead.
I think so. I would say that, I really appreciate that, when it comes to this position, it's about students and students first and being a voice for the students. However, I think, there are quite a lot of things across manifestos that are already being done or were done, not even by me, but my previous predecessors. So I always think it's really good to kind of get that input. I guess my question for you guys is that very few of you really mention EDI projects, which stands for Equality, Diversity and Inclusion projects across the university and the union. And the president is kind of a really big lead on that, including things like changing the culture. You co-chair Changing the Culture at the university, which works on hate crime and sexual violence. And so I guess my question is, how will, especially if marginalized students help you, how will you help progress the work that specifically Katie and Raf, but also myself, have done this year?
Can I go first on that one?
Yes.
So point 5 of my manifesto is that I want to focus on this area. I do think that I've looked at some of the work that you've done, Dorothy, and I think that you guys have put so much effort into this year. And part of that is that it can't just be a 1-year program. It does need to continue, and that's why I wanted to put it on my manifesto, because especially when it comes to decolonising the curriculum, like, these things take time. So I put that on there to account for that. I also want to try and make ones less invasive, to try and balance out some gaps that students who have socioeconomic disadvantage also experience.
If we want to get to the closing statements, we won't have time for 30 seconds. I'm sorry. Chris, would you like to answer?
Yeah, so obviously I've been in the council for a very long time. I've seen the work that Dorothy and the previous presidents have been doing. Obviously, I think it'll be a case of going through the work Dorothy has been doing during the handover, and then carrying on with it.
Thanks. Callum?
Yeah, diversity and inclusion is very important. The reason it wasn't on the manifesto is because I like all of my points, I think, talk to all students. And I know that certain groups need more of a spotlight shone on them, but I want to focus on the bottom line first, which is on students.
Thank you. Husnain?
Well, as I said earlier, my manifesto points covers a broad range of topics, and this I would be working with liberation officers and specific societies and respective students, and then we would be reaching a conclusion to keep the work going on. That's it.
Can I make one more comment? What I put in point 5 of my manifesto is that I think that these things need to underpin all of our policies, and I think that when we're making policies or when we're reviewing them, we really need to consider these areas and how they're going to impact every group of students, and so that's why I put it more as an underpinning statement, because I really think this needs to be something that influences everything we do as president, to fully represent everyone and encompass all areas of student experience. So this area does mean a lot to me and what I would do.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to go to the closing statement.
Can I get in there?
I'll give you 10 seconds.
Yeah, I just agree with Callum. I had other things I wanted to focus on, but I am still committed to decolonising the curriculum and increasing the sanctions and publicity of those sanctions on clubs and societies and people found discriminating, because I think we really need to stamp it out.
Thank you. Okay, we'll head to the closing statements now. Tom, would you like to start?
Yeah, no bother.
45 seconds.
45, awesome.
Go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to say to everyone, thanks for listening, and that a vote for me is a vote to decrease financial concerns for students, encourage participation, enhance the student facilities we've already got, give a greater representation of all groups, and increase the career opportunities for students. All of my policies will be carried out with mental and physical well-being in the forefront of my mind. So back Bracewell on March the 1st.
Thanks, Tom. Husnain, would you like to go next? You've got 45 seconds.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's your university, it's your union, and it's your vote. A vote from you will mean a positive change for you. So vote Husnain Shahid as #1 candidate for NUSU President 2021-22. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Chris, your closing statement?
My dream is to smash the barriers between student and union and make them one and the same again. My dream is to root out inefficiencies and unnecessary obstacles in the union to make it truly representative of the student body. And my dream is to give it back to you, the students. Let's get out there on March and win with winter. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. Abby, your closing statement.
Yeah, so your university experience has suffered from this virus, and I believe that as we recover, there is opportunity to make positive change for us and future students. Everything I do as president will be aiming to create a welcoming, inclusive and sustainable community with more opportunities for you, not just for professional growth, but also your personal growth, as that is what university is all about. So please vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you to all of the candidates. Thank you to Tom. Thank you to Husnain. Thank you to Chris.
I don't think I've done a...
Oh, no, Callum. I'm so sorry. No,
it's all right. No, it's
your
fine.
box was down on my screen.
It's all right.
You've got 45 seconds.
No bother, just a quick one. With the university, I'm going to make sure that we get retroactive compensation for the failures of the university, and also make sure that students are listened to on safety nets and other things in the future. With the SU, I'll make sure that the sexual violence on campus is adequately dealt with, and anyone in the SU who's failed to do that will be investigated. And also, I want to make sure, like Chris says, hand the student union over to the people. I want to make sure that, or at least push for a one person, one vote policy in student council to make sure it's actually democratic and representative of student voices.
Brilliant. I am sorry about that.
It's no bother.
You can go over again. Thank you to Chris, thank you to Callum, thank you Hussein, and thank you to Abby, and thank you to Tom, and thank you to Dorothy for all of her advice and all of her knowledge on this topic, and thank you to everyone who's tuned in, and to the production team for hosting and like doing so much behind the scenes for all of these debates. And good luck to all of the candidates, and to everyone who's watching. Please vote.
Thank you so much,
Lucy,
Dorothy.
Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure being here today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very much. Take care. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.